Key man, are you doing all right over there?
I'm I got a cold today. And as you can probably tell, it's messing with my voice a little bit. But if things are going to be descending upon me, we're gonna monetize the fuck out of them.
Oh no. Uh, God damn it.
Yeah.
If you're not on the Patreon, you don't know. But if you are, you know the kinds of questions we sometimes get in the monthly Q&As, and they're mostly about Key
Oh
and
my
mostly trying to
God.
get him to say things. Listen, I'm sending you my vape psychically, okay?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
called Dragon's Breath. It's a THC one.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, of course. No, it is dragon fruit flavored. Hold on, I'm gonna take a big hit of this. I'm gonna send it to you, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
All right, did you feel it?
yeah. I pass it. You pass it to me, and I pass it to myself. We're chilling.
Gary's like, I got my own, I'm good.
Yeah,
Actually
man.
looking to re-up on the day.
Yeah. Be not alarmed at the frightful howls that you may hear. It's Svinga and wait, did we decide on a B this time?
No, we did not. Let's go with bassier voice because I have a cold.
All right. Chase your voice because he has a cold key. Joined once more, all the way back from episode 17, by our incredible godbrother, the ceremonial tattoo artist, conjurer, kimandero, and sorcerer jack of many trades and master of almost all of them, Gary Noriyuki.
No.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course, and notable, may I add, notable increase in audio quality.
I am happy to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, he like about a week ago was like, I'm getting this man a mic and was like, do I get the hot pink or do I get the black? And like thought about it for a solid 25 minutes until he went with the black. But I just want you to know the hot pink was a very close second.
Well, I would have taken
Get
it.
you a dragon fruit colored one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Remember
was
that?
honestly, it was a
Mhm.
surprise. I'm sorry. It was a surprise whenever I got it here because I was like, what's this? I don't remember buying anything.
He's a master of the I didn't tell you I got you a gift, but I got you a gift. Amazon
I,
package.
then when I opened it, I was just like, oh my God.
Texting me being like, bro.
Is this you? Thank you. And I was so stoked too. My
You're
usual.
yeah. Your texts are always so funny between you guys because it's always just like bro.
And then it'll be
Yeah,
an image of like some crazy thing we're working on. Be like, yo, check this out.
definitely.
Yeah, look at this entire animal I cooked down into fat. This oil's gonna be sick, bro.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah. Exciting adventures under the moonlight.
Literally. Well, before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping. Remember to check us out at twitter.com/frightful howls and patreon.com/the frightful howls. We have a bonus episode every month curated by and for just our patrons. We have a Discord server, which, as Key says, is always popping off. Lots of great conversations, a materia market where people trade, all sorts of like goodies, dirts, things that they've collected, and so on. It's like an international ring of people who send each other amazing materia. We have Salt's Fantastic Almanac there every month to you live, helping you plan out your ritual schedule. We have a monthly live occult book club where we discuss a text of your choosing, show notes for every episode, and more. And remember to please give us a like, rating, and review on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you may be listening to us. It helps us fight the Gnostic demiurge of the equally Gnostic algorithm or archonic algorithm that has trapped our podcast into its chains. And really every single one means the world because it helps us get our work out there. And also be sure to check out our services. Key offers personalized coaching in magic and mediumship, sorcery for hire, readings, custom talismans, oils, tools. For a much higher price, he also offers ASMR live streams, apparently.
It's the one-time $500 Patreon tier.
Yeah, just a one time. God.
Oh my Lord, yeah. The not quite yet.
Not quite yet, yeah. I offer bulk 5 immensity readings. Get your beans read by me. All sorts of topics, of course, are welcome, including spirit core readings. And Salt's books are close, but keep an eye out for his monthly astrological almanac on Patreon. It is well worth its weight in gold. And lastly, hit us up on social media. I'm at Dragon Cunning. Salt is at Salt C and C. Key is barnowl.key on Instagram. And of course, Gary is at Manticore's Den. The Instagram is Manticore's Den. The website is manticoresden.com, where you can buy his work and check out all the new amulets he's producing. And the blog is Manticore's Den Conjure at blogspot.com. One of the OGs still on the blogspot, Gary.
What's that?
You're still on blogspot. You're one of the OGs.
Oh, yes. I was just thinking about making a new post the other day.
Yeah. What's on your mind?
I don't know. There's a lot of things in my mind. But I think it was more on the announcement of, what I have in store coming up or on the release for the store and the appearance of the market on December 14th at Peabody, Massachusetts. Um, and something along the lines of tattooing again, because that is the one thing that I do the most, tattooing, Minden tattooing and ceremonial tattooing.
I'm so excited to chat about you today about ceremonial tattooing. I've been really following your work ever since we became friends. It's one, your line work is incredibly impressive, but the level of attention to detail and care that you put into each tattoo, including customizing it for clients based on what spirits they want offered to beforehand, if they want a kind of accompanying ceremony, if they would like music or drumming to be played during everything, like even seeing custom work you've done for mutual friends. It's been pretty intense. I mean, Key talks a lot about how excited he is to get one from you. One is putting it lightly. He's got a whole set planned eventually in time. But it's
Oh, yeah.
largely drawn not just from your artistry, which is obviously very impressive. You've honed your craft very well, but it's the spiritual like love that you put into this and making sure that it's meaningful for people and that it's something that feels much more special than any other kind of ink that you would get. And I think it's no coincidence, we talked about this last time you were on, but it's no coincidence that you found your way into Sakyant as well.
Yeah, seeing or reflecting the mundane tattooing and finding the rituals involved in them, even if we're not aware of them, and seeing deeper than what is just um, around the tattoo world, and and the mechanism that it involves. That like what else is in there under the layer that we physically see, other than just an image being applied on the skin, and the mindset also that goes into it, because it's interesting to see the aspect of somebody who is not a practitioner and is interested in magical practices and want to get a ceremonial tattoo and not necessarily comprehend the the upkeep or maintenance of them or the routine that you have to keep in mind, the practice that it involves, what makes it a magical tattoo, what is it that separates it from just regular midday tattooing that is just imagery that is cult related or cult inspired. But yeah, like all of these things, all of those questions go with loaded answers, I guess. It depends on the culture as well. But Sakyant and ceremonial tattooing, based on the way that I kind of like developed that, because this was I think, as I mentioned it before, a suggestion that started from Mama Star. And then it was suggested as well by Tata Apokan Jesse Hathaway. And furthermore, it connected in other teachers that I made friendships with, and I would just talk tattoo, and not necessarily trying to understand fully where their ritual, mechanisms or science was behind, but other than, just appreciate the art form. And I guess the love that I had, towards it, and the wonder of wanting to see how my knowledge of certain things was close to what it would be imbued on an image of tattooing done in Sakyant, would bring even a deeper conversation between the Ajar and myself. And I guess that would open up ways to understand a little bit more than the magic involved, and open up my ways to understanding and how to mix the practices that I offer and what the client might have, because this is all like different practices coming together when you really think about it. Not just what I offer, but also what the client might be bringing, the set of spirits that they might already have, because we're conjuring the ancestors during the ritual process for the client, so that they are also present and witnessing the process of it. Um, on top of, if this is towards a spirit, or a goal behind the spell work, because there's also the difference between those, honoring a spirit and spell work on the skin.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like
I
I went
mean,
rambling.
no, I love it. Like it's interesting too because you've worked with Mama Star for so long, so you learn like conjure and work from her, and then you've also been learning Thai necromancy from Ajahn Apichai, whom you mentioned in our last episode. You kind of got into the Thai world through Sakyam, like through tattooing and talking to different people who are, of course, masters of this very sacred art. And then next thing you know, like you're diving deep in first, like head first into all the necromancy and learning about the amulets, especially since you're someone who already crafts them yourself and different traditions. And I appreciate our last conversation, which was about how do you learn in oral traditions that are so separate, and how do you keep certain things distant from each other to not overlap? What does it mean when your spirits inevitably make them overlap, regardless of whether or not you want to keep things separate? Because they will talk
Yes.
to each other, and like you can't stop them from doing that. They're not going to just be in different rooms twiddling their thumbs. And so it's interesting how all that in many ways always keeps coming back to tattoos. Like I love looking at your art, and I love seeing that you have like even just looking at the ways that you incorporate bits of Yunt into like planetary, like Western designs, like a Saturn or Jupiter, or you'll
Yeah.
have like animal powers represented, uh, also with like a couple Yunt, but then you'll also have like something like a sigil, or you'll have like conjure style tattoos that will have like designs that you might even see on like a 7-day candle.
Mhm.
But it's actually like granting the luck, and like the ink itself is enchanted, and it was just interesting because like I guess for people who are not as familiar with like tattooing themselves, or that's not really their world, like if you're in magic, this should be familiar in the sense that like we all enchant and consecrate like what we write with, right? Like the implements of writing, the implements of actually like putting our thoughts onto paper. I think it's not a surprised that many of us also work with Saint Cyprian, who is very much the patron of the book, right? And then there's his own teachers and different systems, including a Kimanda, are the patrons of the ink, right? That which eclipses the page by making it black. And so there's this relationship between what is written and what is fully defined through the medium of the page, the medium of the skin. And then there's the fact that like vellum and actual skin, for the human skin or goat skin or whatever, is such an important medium for magic, for translating spirits into flesh, for letting them mount, for letting them come through in trance, for letting them actually like enhance sensations so that we may feel them. Like there's so much of grimoire work is fasting and doing all these things so you can see spirits more clearly, and you don't have to force them to show up as physically because you're able to actually perceive them properly. It's why so many require you to have like a scryer, like a dedicated person who is actually looking at the spirit while you're doing a conjuration. But magical tattoos can help enhance sensitivity as well as enhance luck and power. And I definitely want to talk to you about taboos that you've mentioned, but for now, I just wanted to emphasize that like I think it's truly remarkable the way that you've gone out of your way to make this as customizable as possible for people to like use techniques that you've learned traditionally, but then honor many different pathways. And like those fusions that you do is something that we talked about a lot in our last episode, but is something that like consistently comes through in your work and your ability to like make something that actually honors that person's intersectional practices while still drawing on your own traditions that you've learned them in.
Yeah, I try to keep in mind things that have been mentioned, either on messages, or if I have a a consultation in person with a person. There are some certain impressions that come to mind. Uh, if I'm doing things in advance, definitely bring it to divination, to bone sets, and sometimes even the cards. And after that, what I believe is gonna be a good way to move forward. I bring it over to Ajaranapichai. And this is where the teamwork begins, kind of like coming together. I relate to him, the goal in mind for the person, and what happened during the time that I was talking to the person, what impressions I got, the divination. And then he would craft the yant and offer a yant and a personalized kara for the person. And I would assemble the design in a manner that it feels, that the energy is flowing away in a manner that is balanced for the person. Show it back to him. If he agrees with it, he would more than likely give me a thumbs up and it's like, go ahead, and I'm gonna do my part on my side. And if not, he might have other suggestions, with the design. But there's always this back and forth before I come to the person. It's like, okay, so this is what we got. But usually it's shown on the day of the tattoo. Like there's no advance, like, oh, this is what you're gonna be getting,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Which is another one of the weirdness that a lot of people, encounter with ceremonial tattooing, because like Ajaran is on the other side of the world and I am here, like, and sometimes it takes me being up, which I am always anyways, like later
Yeah.
hours of the night, which is daytime over there and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I try to be conscious with those things, like, and bring it together. Every time that I've shown the person the design that I come up with, like it's very impressive to them, even though it's just line work. They have yet to see the shading, because the shading, I don't even have a map for it in my mind sometimes. It just happens when as I'm tattooing. The other thing is, during the process of tattooing, I've had people come to me and like wanting to talk. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I have to instruct you into getting into the ritual mindset, because
Mhm.
like, us, even though as this is, we're doing the cleansing, we said the prayers and stuff like that, there's still a lot that happens during the application of it, the katas that are being recited, and the mental focus to channel the energy that is being summoned by the sorcerer or the tattooer and stuff like that. Like, it is vital. It has to be very, very focused as it's being applied on the skin, uh,
Mhm.
which usually direct people to meditate or just simply just stay quiet and allow for the process to happen. It's been interesting to see some experiences for clients where like they have an encounter with an ancestor. It's been rare, um, but it has happened at least once in a session, and another ones where they feel the energies blending with their body, and it's something that they have never felt before. Um, then the transmission of dreams. There's some people that relate dreams and stuff like that, or feelings that are new. So it's interesting to hear these things back and forth from both practitioners and non-practitioners, and seeing how person encounters this shifts of not normal, because like, it's not like any other regular tattoo where you get there, you want to talk about the experience, or like why you're being inspired, stuff like that. In ritual time, or at least this the way that I was taught, like, is that the mental focus has to be there, the meditation has to be there, um the step by step to be able to calm the person during the process has to be there. There's been times where the person has fallen asleep and they wake up and they're like, I can't believe that I fell asleep through it,
Mm.
And it was a really uncomfortable position, I've been feeling it, but they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see all of those things come float and happen, during the ritual process.
Yeah, there's a really interesting interplay between the trance states that both you and the person being tattooed have to get into for that process, right? As the time
Yeah.
goes on, kind of as they're being worked on, like even they're falling, deeper and deeper into it through both what you're doing and in part, I guess, through the action of receiving it themselves. But I think as part of that as well, to go back to an earlier point that Svinga made with regards to even, a lot of these manuals of magic being themselves alive or going through all of these processes to make a liber spiritum a living entity or a spirit all its own that can go forth and retrieve and conjure all that is inscribed within it. So I think as well, the person becoming we'll say the spirit onto which is impressed this magic or impressed these other spirits all their own with the tattoos as living entities is an interesting thing. It just shows, like you were saying, there's so much process going on in the background, the interplay between you and John, like all of the energies being there, all of the spirits being there, and all of it coming together in a cohesive whole.
Yes, it's been interesting to feel the change of energy, especially during the tattoo process, because there is sometimes layering that happens on the ambience change, especially after calling on the ancestors and getting the first part started, and is I guess is what really brings it to the person of like, oh, the ritual has started, but it has started way before that. But um but yes, it's interesting to feel those changes and get on the mindset and uh call on the energies, channel on the energies, whether that is planetary or spiritual, or just blessings of the energy that the person whom is playing the tattoo might have as well. Whether that be a Jarn or a sorcerer.
What are some of the things that you do to prepare someone for that, especially if it's like a sudden design, right? Like so I'm trying to like figure out what that's like because I imagine it's a bit like having a custom sigil, right? Like you tell the Ajarn what the intention is, he designs something for you and you run it by the person and then let them know like what the taboos will be for them going forward, like what they'll have to do to keep the magic in their skin.
So taboos are very simple. It's not as they're not as involved as other practices out there. Because it depends on the applications on the lineage that
Hmm.
is being called.
Hmm.
Uh, the one that I have from Ajarna Pichai is just really three, which is respecting your elders, not having sex during period, or not having contact with sex during period.
Hmm.
And the other one is not spitting on a toilet bowl.
Hmm.
And all of those things, like partially come with cultural background, of why these things are a taboo. Of course, the respect towards elders, like that is something that is taught, growing up to kids and stuff like that. But it's something that should be hold between, no matter what it is, the practice or culture, between the young person, whether that be apprentice or just young in general, and another person. You might have differences of opinions, but you can't necessarily sit down and argue with the person and stuff like that. So that is really what that goes towards, in regards of respecting your elders.
Hmm.
Um, the other one would be having sex during period. Like some of those, the period blood is seen as a way to, I don't want to say nullify, but like it lessens the power of certain tattoos, because One, it also comes to the understanding of the magic being applied on the person is holy power.
Mm,
Um, the blood that comes out, in menstruation is considered dead blood.
mm-hmm,
So therefore it's unclean. So having contact with a blessed item, it lessens the power of it, which needs to be reblessed by a holy person or another sorcerer, or the sorcerer who's made it.
mm-hmm,
That is my understanding from what Ajaran has explained. And the other one would be like a spitting on the bowl, So again, goes back to the similarity of holiness, because the chanting, the drawing of these energies, the special force, the holy force that is being applied onto the skin to make the magic happen, becomes part of the living breath of the person.
mm-hmm,
Um, or speech, is the blessing at that point. So by us spinning into the bowl, which is something that is considered a lower level because we go and defecate, we go and poop there and stuff like that. By spitting out, it's basically like you're going against that blessing. You're just wasting that blessing, and
mm,
you're kind of like disrespecting the lineage in that sense, which you have to go back to the person who did the tattoo and have that blessing again and stuff like that. Um, the one thing that usually I get asked on a lot is like, well, what about when I puke? Well, what will you puke? Is when you puke? Like I've actually I asked Ajar the same question because I
yeah.
was really sick during the time that I was studying these things. I think I had COVID, and so like a couple of times I was like, I'm gonna end up puking. And so what if I end up with like having COVID later on and I have a tattoo of my own and like can fucking puke or something?
Mm-hmm,
And he explained, he's like, well, sometimes bodily functions are bodily functions. When it comes to it, just make the couple of prayers that you're taught, like the chanting of the kata to summon the ajarn or the person who applied the magic on you.
mm,
And as for I don't want to say forgiveness, but it's more like it's kind of like a prayer that you're like, I did not mean any harm by this. This was just sickness, and ask for blessings
mm-hmm,
to fall upon you and stuff like that. It's about being conscious, and actions of being conscious and keeping in mind your actions and being mindful, holding on to the blessing that you have had for a year, because by the year you have to go back and get it reblessed by the person who did it as well, and keeping those things. So it becomes a daily practice. It becomes a way of living. It brings also a practice of meditation. If you are not necessarily having a good practice with that, this is a good way to establish that. Because that is at least one of the requirements is that you practice at least a little bit of maybe 5-10 minutes to be mindful, to bring your mind to meditation, to just think of nothing, to ask for the blessings. If the meditation is to channel energies and being focused on that, then that is the next step. But for the most part, from the beginning, a lot of people usually say that they have problems with meditation, and is because they are thinking that meditation is this idea that is being portrayed out there. While meditation really is coming to understanding the time where you become distracted and
mm,
bringing that awareness back into center and focus and to nothingness. That's the very, very beginning of it. This is how I started on my own. Later on, I started focusing, like the focus was nothing. Then I shifted focusing energy, whether that is planetary or universal or the earth, or things that are around me or elemental and stuff like that, and bring them in through the tattoo. um, but yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting, and there's many different traditions that have a menstrual blood taboo and see that as like as you mentioned, like dead blood or like blood that is not living. It's the same thing. This is like spilling blood from your arm. Um, and then of course, like having sexual contact with menstrual blood, or sometimes in certain cases, since I menstruate, it's one of those things where certain shrines I shouldn't approach when I'm on my cycle. I should touch certain spirits, or I shouldn't be around certain kinds of practices. Not because it's like there's some kind of like misogynistic, like, oh, it's bad, or it just makes you dirty and unclean. More in the sense that like it can affect spirits, right? It can rile them up, it can get them excited, it can some of them, like when they smell it, they know they're gonna want more, for blood specifically, and some of them it just makes them very aggressive and intense. Like female spirits tend to respond to it very well, but it still empowers them in different ways, whereas certain male spirits may go a little crazy when they smell it. And so it's one of those things of like, this isn't to make anyone who doesn't have a tradition that has these taboos get nervous. Like, it's something to ask your elders about. Like, if you're listening to this and wondering like, oh, what about my spirits? Like, I mean, it doesn't affect everybody, right? So it's like, for most things that you're doing, it's probably not a huge deal. But if you're working with a tradition that has these taboos, it's a good thing to ask your mentors or your initiators, like, what should I be wary of when it comes to menstruation? Because it's something that will affect different kinds of work differently. And specifically, when you have vague instructions in grimoires, for example, that say keep pure, what that means can mean a lot of different things, including like, are you fasting a full vegan diet? Like, is it from every kind of animal product? Are you abstaining from all kinds of sex, or just sex with other people? Like, masturbation okay? Is sex with spirits okay? Like, these things are for divination, right? And for certainly checking in with mentors. And if you don't have a mentor, at the very least with your guiding spirits, they can give you advice on this with divination. So I wouldn't, because we do get questions sometimes when we bring up taboos and they're like, oh, does this apply to me? It's like, well, probably not if it's not been a problem for you, and if it's not in your tradition, or you haven't been given this kind of taboo. It's also, taboos I think are also interesting discussion because it's more for your the safety of your relationship with something. And you were saying that, respecting your elders, it's not just some kind of like cultural artifact. It's also a way to honor the actual legacy of the empowerments that are given in the tattoo itself.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Um, for the respective elders, like I it's one of those topics of like that I get also asked on, what about, like we disagree on these things, stuff like that. I was like, well, you can totally disagree with an elder, like and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to go correct them. They're an elder, and like sometimes that mentality is gonna take a lot to be changed, and it's not gonna come to change until they want that change. We encounter those things sometimes with spirits, sometimes where their mentality is still stuck on whatever they had as living, and they don't want to see otherwise. But yeah.
Yeah, it's also like respecting someone is not the same thing as just kissing their ass, or like agreeing with them constantly for the sake of agreeing with them. Like, respect is also shown through healthy challenging, of particular norms, but not necessarily by overriding ritual authority, which I think is the more important part. Like, I appreciate that we just had on all three of us, our mutual godfather in Kimanda, on the last episode, and we talked a lot about like what it is to learn from an elder, what it is to learn in an oral tradition, and it was less like a Kimanda episode. It's a bit more about like what it is to learn in oral traditions, which was kind of like a topic we were going to do anyway. We'll be doing another one soon with him that is a bit more like 101 with Kimanda for people who are like completely new to it. But it was interesting that it came up in the sense that like, yeah, like, we learning from elders is not just about like perpetuating their bullshit, or perpetuating the things that like they do just because it's what they do. It's also about like keeping the fire of tradition going in ways that actually honor both the transmission as well as the spirits. So ultimately, like, we are always comfortable disagreeing with elders and challenging things and moving forward. It has to learn from new people, but ritual authority is not something to start pushing against or flexing against in the middle of ritual, and certainly in the way that like sacred blessings are conveyed, because that's a chain of transmission that is not necessarily just about the person giving it to you. It's about how they receive it and what spirits are involved in that process. So I appreciate that clarification very much. I remember when you were telling me about like these things, I was like spitting in a toilet bowl. Like, that was the one that was the most confusing. The other two, I was like, okay, I get it, But your explanation does help clarify that, because it's there's so many versions of like what that could be too.
Yeah, like it's so funny because like when I was first presented with examples, there's other lineages that have like 10 taboos.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You can walk under like a clothing line, like and
Mm.
stuff like that, or you can walk under a bridge, a lot of stuff and stuff like that. But the Kumbaya lineage that Ajarna Pichai has is, I think, like the most relaxed because like in this one you can have sex and stuff like that. There's no, when it comes to sex and ritual, like there's no such thing as like uncleanliness, like it's totally fine type of stuff. I'm not saying, mix them together, but like you don't necessarily have to go fasting, after having sex, like in order to get into the mindset, like a simple shower, like and a refreshing of the body.
Mm.
It's the mindset change in order to be able to, move on because it's seen as like sexual stress being released, and therefore there is no stress for your mind to be able to move forward with certain things. At least this is the way that a Ajahn explained it to me, because I was just like, I have certain concerns, like is when it comes to like blessed items that you have made, like let's say on a scenario I had sex with somebody, like, and I want to put my necklace on again with the amulet that is,
Mm-hmm.
blessed by you. Like, should I not put it on? Is there any things that I should consider? It's like, no, that's totally fine. Like it's you did what you did. Like if now your mind is refreshed, like, and it's totally fine to put it on and continue moving forward. Because now you don't have that. I don't want to say disturbance, but this hot energy in your mind. Taking uh a space, so to speak. Like, or taking a bigger presence over what is necessary outside of the desire of sexuality or sex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so yeah, like another thing that I had seen in one of those lists was like not having a woman be on top of you as a male, and I was like, is this one something that I should be concerned to? He's like, oh, no, no, no. He's like, I love women too on top of me. So he's like, it's totally fine. He shows how he's like, this is the differences, versus somebody that is studying Potakun, like magic, and like that you're definitely going for holiness. So like you want to abstain from sex or having a woman be on top of you. I was like, okay, so I can have a woman on top of me. This is good. I can
Not
I can totally move forward with this tattoo.
not the anti-cowgirl taboo.
It's like,
Oh man.
no, but
Like emoji fading like into when Windows PowerPoint transition. No.
Mhm. There's a really funny video on YouTube. I think it was a Vice documentary about Sakyant tattooing, where a guy had to go back to Ajahn because he said he had violated a taboo, and the interviewers are trying to get him to say what it is, and eventually, very sheepishly, he's like, "She wrote it real good."
Shawty's like a melody in my head.
Exactly. But no, it is really interesting to see the standing variation um, in taboo and in requirements for the magic that is done, because ultimately it's the magician and the lineage behind them that's going to figure out how these things are done. So all those individuals in that lineage, including the person who's doing it themselves, are going to have different ideas. Same with how the blessings are done. Like, I know at the outset we had mentioned the differences between like putakun versus like a more um I guess elementally and energetic based
Mhm.
application.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those and like how that elemental balance comes into play for the tattoos that you apply.
Mm. So more of the elemental blessing stuff, or for good luck and stuff like that. The type of tattoos. I focus with more of the conjure style, and I blend also the blessing style that Jared brings in. Um, the Putakon stuff, with my astrology, like it seems to be a fit for me to, if I wanted to expand on that side. I have a choice on it, but it's not necessarily my focus. So
Hmm.
I don't follow it in that sense, like, so I that's where I pick my conjure side, and I bring the elements of this land, so to speak, to bring the blessings of,
Hmm.
holiness into it, and the elemental powers mix into it, because I want to give it first the blessings of holiness from the ancestors and God the Father, or the
Hmm.
Creator, and also I want to give it the footing, so to speak, or the energies that make most of the things that are in this world. So that gives it on top of our skin, foot energy to bring those elements into balance. If the person has already some, imbalances on it, by bringing the information of the client to a jar, he checks on the astrology and sees what is the best to bring that balance in, and blend with the blessings that I'm applying with the conjure side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
That's pretty much the way that I move forward. If it's not something for sorcery, so to speak, like for kate, or because that wouldn't make any sense to have the conjure side on it. So blending. Um, I'm not saying that I'm blending sakyan, with it, but like it's the way that I have done it before for somebody, where I have conjure on this hekate energy with their assistance to be able to put that. But the way that I focus on was more elemental side, to be able to bring those energies forth.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It's a really, I think it's a really beautiful way to like assemble almost a container for the other magic that is going to be held
Hmm.
by the tattoo. Like when the person might be deficient in something, raising it up so that their body can hold that magic and actually just be like a balanced
Hmm.
um vessel of like whatever the tattoo needs to draw upon in that moment.
Yeah. Um, I also focus on cleansing the person, and as part of the ceremony before applying the tattoo,
Mhm.
so that way anything that they might have attached to them or lingering around them, it's also cut away, and it's a good way to begin a fresh start, a starting point. Now that you have chosen to pick up on a new tattoo, because when it comes to tattooing, this is choice. We're making the choice to put these things on our body and stuff like that. Um, Same thing with the type of taboo and practice that they come along. Like we have to make those choices. Like and be conscious about it, and consider that the tattoo becomes also a tool of magic, to be employed if you are a sorcerer. But if you're not looking to mix it with sorcery or just have the blessing or something, to call on those energies, like it is good to have that as also a tool to bring forth, on the regular mundane living, the blessings for it. If you don't have consistent practice with someone, definitely something to come through and have it reblessed on the yearly basis, which that involves it's a similar process to getting it done on the first site. With the only thing is that you're not getting tattooed again, like it's just offerings. It's for the most part offerings to the ancestors, offerings to the ancestors of the lineage of Pichai, which are the dead ancestors of each practice that he has hand on.
Hmm.
Um, then the patron spirits that I work with in order to bring these things forth, uh, along with Baphomet, which is always the elemental siding here, like, or at least the elemental mixture that I bring into the ceremony. Baphomet to me is the elemental beast that makes things, magically move. The possibility, the mystery, um, that is also connected in tattooing along as a patron spirit with
Mm-hmm.
Arkat and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I loved our discussion of Baphomet in the 17th episode that we did together, where you mentioned because Apichai, the Ajahn, also did his own Baphomet collection and had his own kind of like perspective of what spirit was coming forward to represent in that shape. And then, of course, Baphomet Beelzebub is a huge thing for Ashumor and Kimanda, and then, of course, just in general, a huge symbol of elemental unity in many traditions.
Mhm.
So it's interesting how that always kind of comes back to that as like a I mean, even, like not to read too far into it, but the Manticore itself, right, is a very similar fusion of these things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I am curious to like you mentioned like and even Key mentioned this YouTube video, right? People come back to get things re-blessed, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that you can do for somebody if someone violates a taboo of a tattoo that you've given to them? Like, is that something that you can empower, or is it something that you would have to go to the Ajahn for?
Yeah, no, that is something that I can do on
Mm-hmm.
his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
I have the katas to summon the lineage
Mm-hmm.
in order to do those, which is basically the thing that you still lit up. And every session in the altar, there's 5 candles. That is the representation for the lineage. That is when I have already summoned the lineage of Ajarn, and be able to bring that energy that he is putting forth from his side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as he does light a candle every time that we do a tattoo, and we're on communication, he does a ritual where he psychically puts the magic onto the person as well, and assist the ritual that is being done on my end.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole teamwork
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on.
That's
But yes,
beautiful.
that can be done through that. Like as I was saying, like the offerings that are giving are for that, for the lineage, for the ancestors of the lineage and the patron spirits.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And it's interesting that you mentioned like how different lineages have different taboos. I read like a list a while ago that included like not eating leftovers, not eating food from like a funeral, not
Yeah.
slandering anyone's mother. So that
Yes.
already cancels out like all my yo mama jokes, right?
It's the
Or
Johnny
like,
Bravo taboo.
whoa, mama.
Exactly. Oh man. Yeah, no, when I seen the long list too, I was just like, I'm in trouble. If I get any other status, I'm in trouble. Like, right, how long is it gonna last?
Mhm. Yeah, and like some of them like folklorically like not ducking under like a banana tree. I'm like I get that with all the banana tree lore. Especially in Thailand. But some of them I'm just like, whoa, like you can't eat certain vegetables, you can't like sit on certain like broken ceramic. Which makes you think of like, okay, but check if every toilet that you ever sit on has like a crack or something. Because it's not just urns, right? But
Hmm.
I do understand too that like because this is not the only context in which people receive particular taboos. Like there are
Hmm.
when people crown an ocha, they can receive many taboos, and people receive certain spirits like to take care of them properly, to remain in a state of ritual purity, to receive their blessings, or to do certain things that don't ward their influence. In the way that we can
Hmm.
exercise spirits and prevent them from coming when we're doing a different ritual, we don't want certain like ancestors or certain spirits to be around us during certain kinds of things. We can also cultivate presence, right, by doing things that attract those spirits. So it's just it's a good reminder to us all to be humble about some of these things and understand that like sometimes you won't even realize like it's not that the thing that you're avoiding is like inherently bad. It's more that like there's certain spirits that might be warded by its presence. Because not every
Hmm.
spirit considers the same thing miasmic or the same thing offensive. I certainly like we've talked about this one spirit in particular quite a lot. He's quite known in the Balkans, the Gospodar Vukova or the Vuci Pastir, the Master of the Wolves, or the Wolf Shepherd, who is like famously offended by oath breaking, but what you count as breaking an oath may not be what he counts. Like for him, any like this is especially like I'm not going to speak universally on the spirit, but like within the context in which I've received empowerment to work with the spirit through a mentor of mine in Western Serbia who has a very developed practice with him. Like telling somebody, oh yes, I'm going to do this thing for you. and then not doing that because you got tired is breaking an oath. Does that mean it's in the world? No. Like you can obviously make up on that by being like, hey man, sorry about that. I forgot. But you can't just ignore it. Like you do have to message that person back in time. Telling a spirit like I'm gonna make this offering for you and being very specific with the time, like you have to do it by that time unless you go to them and renegotiate and say, hey, I'm gonna actually take a few more days. So it's not so strict that like you can't renegotiate things, but like you have to be very aware of your word. Like the easiest way to offend him is not like menstrual blood or sexual positions or when you eat, it's how you speak. Because even like for example, like Saint Demetrius's day, Mitrovdan, is November 9th, and fairly famous day for well, it's the start of a winter season for us, but it's also a fairly famous day for essentially getting your shit together and making good on all your debts that you owe. So like even if you promise someone $10, like you would give it back to them, or you at least update them on the status of when it is that you can get that back to them. Precisely because that's when his spirits are prowling and they are sniffing out where the debts have not yet been squared off. So it's less that like other spirits would have a particular problem with that. It's more that like to cultivate and maintain the power to bless things on his behalf, you have to be good with him on this level. So that's one way I kind of think about taboos specifically, is like it's like cultivating the presence of that spirit's power in you so that it doesn't get offended or changed or retreat from you because there's now an incongruity between you two.
Yeah. Taboo. Interesting subject. But glad that it's only three.
Yeah. You're lucky.
Glad there's only three, and anybody that gets a tattoo from me is only three. So
Yeah, don't worry. She can still write it.
Yes, definitely, she can still write it. Here's the other thing, though. Like there's such thing as remediation, and like I know a lot of people get scared of like the whole taboo thinking and stuff like that. And I get it because at first, like I was totally freaked out about it too. But there is such things as oils that have the ability to empower those things. So sometimes, like the Ajarn or the sorcerer, like myself, might give you a little bit of oil that you might anoint on it if indicates that you do happen to have a slippery slop and mess up, type of stuff. But it can empower and rebless as if it was new. There's also Sipong has some of those abilities, depending on who makes it. The one that Ajarna Pichai makes has that. So if somebody has a blessed tattoo with the yans and things that he has prescribed and happens to have messed up, or not be able to come around the time, a year's time, so to speak, like can use those things to re-bless them and do a little bit of a ceremony for themselves. Usually those things come with a small kata. But if you already have a personalized kata of your own from ceremonial tattoo, then you use your own to be able to connect into the lineage and empowered and rebless the tattoo through that. There's also the roots that he has made with that. Actually, I'm wearing one of those right now as a belt. It's
nice.
pretty thick. Yeah. I'll show it in the camera here in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, he makes things like that, and I have some things that I have worked that are not released, that are just kind of given whenever the person receives the tattoo from me.
Oh yeah.
Hell
It's a thick sheet of lead where the spell work has been written, and it has been soaked on oils that renew the magic, and then prayed over as it's being rolled up.
Beautiful.
Always love the magic that makes other magic work better.
Literally, yeah. It's we talk about that a lot, right? The incense that you learn to make to help you make better incense, the ink that you make to make better inks, and the spirit you conjured in using necromancy to help you become a better necromancer. So, for those who don't know, can you explain what a sipung is? Specifically, as you mentioned, that's one thing that can also help repair.
Sipong. Sipong is enchanted wax. So usually those are beeswax that has been gathered in the woods is considered auspicious and holy because it's from nature.
Mm.
Um, this could be, I mean, there's many of them, depending on which one it is. You know, like if it's a sipong made by the blessing of the Ajarn, like Chai, for good luck and attraction and stuff like that. Then the sipong has certain type of herbs and oils that are mixed into it and solidified and sold into like little cases that sometimes have a root and sometimes they don't. You know, sometimes they have other things. There are other sipongs that are not so tattoo friendly, are more pry based, you know, like and have, you know, bacteria that that you shouldn't come in contact with. Um, but you know, like they're the ones that are good for blessings are good for tattooing as well, or reblessing some of the tattoo ink as well. But yeah,
Totally.
that's what I would say. They say that it is close to what we know as the witch's ointment. You know, it could be many recipes of those
Hmm.
uh, because it has a lot of wax and you know herbs and different fats mixed into them. Um, but yeah.
Totally, yeah. I feel like I have quite a few now at this point. Just when I've purchased random amulets, people will send like sipong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they won't really explain what it's for. So I've never actually used it because I'm a little bit like, let me define with my spirits first. Um,
Wow, I love sipon.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the first time that I ever tried it, it was
Uh-huh.
also a gift. You know, I had no
Yeah.
fucking clue what it was. You know,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
was just
yeah,
like, "What
yeah.
the hell is this thing?" You know, and I asked around, and you know, I found out that it was sipong, and same thing. You know, like I didn't really get much out of it, but as far as information went, and so I was just told, you know, just put it on your lips, you know, or put it on your eyebrows, and Ajaran told me put it on your ears. I was like, all right. And he's like, that's so that, you know, like you can have a better communication with your spirits, you know, like, and there's a spirit that you have nearby that needs to whisper, you know, like that you have the ability to sense that. I was like, all right, that makes sense, you know. So I started using the first one, you know, like I said, I had no clue what it was, you know, like I just rubbed it on my hands and rubbed it on my lips and I went on about my week, you know, I was throwing it out for a week and I noticed, you know, like that people were a little bit charmed, you know, and stuff like that, you know, like and I was receiving extra tips on tattoos and
Mm.
I was enjoying it, you know, and so like
She was
it made
feeling
me more
herself.
curious. Yep. And so that made me more curious and made me want to see even further, you know. And so like I started like looking deeper into whatever I could, you know, with Cpong and stuff like that. And I ended up actually taking a class around that time on fine ointments by Oculta. And that helped me understand and piece things together a little bit more. And so like the ideas that I had, I brought them over to Ajar and I was like, so, you know, like I keep seeing these things that you have and that you offer, you know, and you know, like there's a little bit of information of it, but you know, like this is what I think it is for, you know, and I would explain what I would assume, you know, like it would could be made and stuff like that, and you know how it could be assembled, you know, like and methods of making, you know, enchanted wax for flying ointment, you know, ideas. And then he was like, so kind of like Sipong. And I was like, ah, so it is, you know, it's similar to
Mm-hmm.
Sipong.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started explaining too, you know, like ways of gathering the beeswax and, you know, like how certain grimoires that he has, you know, like how for specific days, specific nights, specific energies some of them are blessed by certain spirits or deities or certain divas. And some of them, you know, like could be fabricated in a couple of months, and some of them could be fabricated in a couple of years, you know,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what it could be. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey also to explore Sipong because I've been also working on type of it of myself, you know, but not fully sipong, but more on my enchanted beeswax recipe based on these studies.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Well, I'm gonna give mine a shot then. That sounds fun.
Yeah, you should see how it works. Like I mean, like some of them are very herbal based, and like those are always fun, and safe and stuff like that. And it's the ones that are pride that I'm always like looking at them. I was like, no, if I want to mess with this so much.
Hmm.
Or like how much do I really want to get in trouble? And
Mm,
like is this gonna be difficult to maneuver later, type of questions that come to mind.
hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, I have a mystery sipong here that scrying it, I'm like, I think this is mostly pry. I'm gonna just put this on the shrine and
Which one
not
is
have to
it?
worry about it. Yeah, I have no idea. It's just mystery sipong. It's in a little case as a tech root, but
I have a mystery poem I received also in an order, and I can't remember where it came from, but I look at it, I feel it, I know it's prey. I can feel
Yeah.
the
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, yeah, you just know there's human remains in there.
Yeah,
No, no question about it. It's a distinct feeling psychically. You're like, oh, that's a dead person.
yeah, and like I've gone as far as to opening it and just like staring at the thing.
Hmm.
yeah.
Just scrying the wax.
Yeah, basically. Hmm. But yeah, Sipong is it's an interesting thing. Yeah. It's always makes me wonder how like it was constructed originally, because like there's, even though I've been shared like a couple of ideas and stuff like that, it's not like I've seen agree more, like and know what he's saying. Like I've been shown pictures of what it could look like, but like it's like, oh, this is something that is better to be seen in person. I was like, okay, I'll wait until I get there. But
Hmm.
yeah, like it's interesting. It's a mysterious thing.
Hmm. And then there's some amulets, like speaking of amulets and tattoos having similar qualities. There's some that are just like, oh my God, are they freaky? Like I think back to the one that you have, Key, that's like it's a pranyang that wants to like watch you have sex.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really funny one. Um, it's an uh interesting one specifically because it's coded for gay men as well. So I'm
What's
like,
this?
okay, you can hang on. This is a pranang that's for gay dudes, and it's like one of the
Mm,
offerings you can have it watch.
yeah.
Um, luckily not the taboo when he's on top. That's center.
Nasty.
Gentlemen.
You're like, I may always be the top, but he can still ride it from the top.
But
Funny.
yeah, it's a funny amulet. He's a funny spirit too.
Well,
Rangang.
it's an Apachai one too. It's a Pranyang from him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is what I was gonna grab Rangang and say and use him as an example. So
Hmm.
let's, like this is where the tattooing takes a little bit of a change.
Uh-huh.
So Rangang is the one that I know that is okay to come in contact with blood
Hmm.
as a tattoo and as an amulet too. So or be around, like you said, like to see, and that's one of the offerings. It's like, hey, it wants to see you have fun. It wants to see you like have fun with the stuff that he brought you, that you asked for. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm getting off on that too.
I'm gonna come.
Good old mountain deities be like, I want to watch.
Mm, freaky little pranang. I like it.
You always like the freaks though.
Yeah, we all
Oh
we all
yeah.
got those spirits. The certified freaks.
Hmm.
7 days a week.
I have a fresh set of Prangang sitting right here with me. That Ajaran just put out. They're pretty strong. They're pretty potent.
Hey, he's looking good.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, maybe we'll get you to send us some pictures for the show notes for the patrons since this isn't a video one. But like for those who aren't aware, Panyang is absolutely like a very powerful mountain deity in many ways. Who can it much like an issue can be used for good and bad, depending on kind of like how you work him. And is known to be very like fast, like remarkably good at being able to get things in very quickly and likes to show off too in the way that he works. So one of the things I think the Red Bull incident that you told us about on the way to court last episode was thanks to just a can of Red Bull and a Pranyang.
Yep. Yep. A can of Red Bull.
I got a bucha to him and it's beautiful. Like I love mine. I do his kata, I give him offerings, and he's a little money printer. Like he'll fucking print money when you really need him to. And then he wants you to spend it a little bit on him and show off.
Yep. Yep. I have found that if you start working with him, like it brings this energy for sure to bring money, like, and there's been a scenarios, like where I've had my own, like that I'm carrying mine, just to test them out and see what's up, because like as we do, we like to test things out.
Hmm.
And so I was asking it, like bring me some offerings that I can see and like that this are heavy. I mean, this bring me some tips. I mean, might as well be offerings to me. Maybe some tips that are heavy, stuff like that are pretty evident that you have problems and stuff like that. And that week, I ended up receiving three different tips that were like $200 on top of like the 3 hours that I have been tattooing already. But I was charging normal price, and I was just like, this is pretty strong. This is a pretty strong tip. I was like, this is crazy. And so this was years back, and so like I ended up tattooing one of those clients this year, and they started talking out of nowhere and something along the lines of like, the last time that that ended up getting a tattoo from you, I tipped you $200 and I didn't meant to tip you $200 and I didn't realize it until I got home, but like, but I wasn't upset and I felt it was worth it. And then she's like, I don't know why, well, I was just like okay with the fact that I just gave you $200 and shit like that, when I just meant to give you 100, I just like felt like so dizzy in a way, like it was just odd. And I was just like, oh, there he goes. That was the prank on. Years
And
later being confirmed.
and then just had to the whole time like tell you about it too.
Yeah.
Tell you the whole decision-making process.
Right. So yeah, it was funny. It was interesting. Frangang is definitely an interesting dude. He likes to boost some of the erotic oils that I have
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
are sent out for people. They usually sits with the bucha that I have of Prangang. There's the gang of gangs, just sitting in the corner.
Yeah, the Ngang Gang.
The gang, which is I guess this is why I had the gang music, like in my head this last couple of days, like or very mafia inspired, like tunes in the back of my mind.
No, I love it. I love
It's
it.
all the tobacco and alcohol and the influence of gangs and the Kimbanda that I've been working.
Yeah, I mean, we've cultivated an aesthetic for sure. You more so than anybody. I think Key, your love of Prangang and you being such a notorious daredevil, I think it goes well because it's also interesting because a lot of those amulets you can't wear below the belt, but he can be worn at the belt loop. Right. And I love it one time you rolled up on me and you had your little like gay sex Pranyang on you, right on like your belt loop and with your keys, and you were just kind of like, because you have like this really nice studded belt, and I was looking at it and you were just like, I fucking stay strapped. I'm like, wait, I was like, are you concealed carrying your Glock right now? And you're like, I got something better.
Sometimes all it takes is a amulet.
Oh man, mine is a little silly. There's been occasions that I've been carrying mine, like of course from the belt loop and stuff like that. But he's like this little red
Yeah. Yeah.
bulge and stuff like that. And I went into my workspace actually, and like the tattoo shop, and I went to see what one of my coworkers was doing. Like he was tattooing this person, and this person was laying down. Like and they were like face to the side, and then they turned their face to look forward. They're facing where I'm standing, and they're like, "What's that?" And automatically in my mind, something went my other nuts. I just started giggling and I was just like, oh my God, you are
It's
silly.
I honestly get haunted by my spirits sometimes when I carry them around, and even when I don't carry them around, because like in some ways, like the work that you do with a tattoo is very similar to an amulet, but it's just that one is portable and the other is always on you.
Mhm.
And obviously, like the tattoo can carry lots and lots of different material on its own, and through blessings and through the ink and through whether or not it's like snake venom is involved, and some of them, are not even visible. Like it's oil that's put on you and it's blessed by breath. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So it's not even like physically visible, although Key, you have that story about the guy who did it to somebody and breathed on it, and when they died, like when you look at his corpse, like the tattoo design was physically on his bones.
Yeah, there was
Mm.
a famous story of I believe it was the Jant Galjord that was inscribed by a particular monk on a devotee in oil, just
Mhm.
using like the the stylus and not the needle. And he was famous as well for just blowing it onto the face of like the devotee. So someone who received it from him in that way, when they passed away and were cremated, they were like, "What is this bone that won't burn?" And they fished it out and determined it was the paneng, like the forehead,
Mhm.
with the yacht physically like cut into the bone.
So
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
I need about 7 of those.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Armored up, like someone tries to steal your bones for sorcerer reasons because they're like, oh, there was this like badass Kimandero who was also a tattoo artist who was also a conjurer. I need his bones for my spirit pod, and next thing you know, like they just cut themselves on your grave on like
Yeah,
a bed of spikes, and your bones won't like refuse to be reduced to dust.
yeah, that was I recently attended a funeral and the topic of like how the remains are processed came up, and a friend of mine is like, you're into some weird stuff. What are you gonna do when you pass? And I'm like, what are you, a Fed? Why do you want to know?
Like hey, so what's your birth time and birthday? You're like, what are you, a Fed? You want to know my
Yeah,
weaknesses? You want to print off a picture of me with my birth chart in the back around a love candle?
yeah. That's like someone is like, hey, what's my date of birth? And I'm like, just stop texting him, dude.
Good old magic OPSEC.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think with I mean, it's also, I love watching you do your amulets, Gary. It's very clear that you have a very similar artistic process for both of them, especially now that you've been doing a lot more fusions of like Kimbanda and Tai Conjure and a bunch of other things. Like it's so fun to see how like the principles that you develop with like sacred tattooing for your clients has come into amulets. I'm curious to hear about some of the new things that you're working on too.
Ooh. Uh, have been working on a project that I'm going to be releasing soon is the roots of self-empowerment in the arts and attraction in aid of also sorcery, but have a little bit of a fusion going on because it's Kimbanda and necromancy, Thai necromancy fusion. This is the next project that Ajar Apichai and I work together on, and it blends the crew elements along with mixtures of powders and oils that we have crafted on both ends. The crew itself is wrapped on a corpse cloth and also has a binding of red cloth as a finish and is worn as a choker. It has an extension cord that
Mm,
helps with the length of it, depending on how long you want it. And
hmm
it's nice and bussy. There's two versions of it. One of it is lead sheets, which is a little bit heavier, has a little bit more of the materia in it,
hmm
has a little bit of a weight to it. And the other one is copper sheets. Both of them equally as potent. And there is a set of 21 that have been made. So that's the project that I have been working on in the last A couple of weeks, months, let's say. Like time is a blur at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is the main thing that we've been working on. The other thing was done around St. Cyprian's feast day. It's actually 7 amulets that were crafted with necromancy elements from Thai sorcery, blended with the Ponto Riscado of Eshomea Noche, which is the one connection to St. Cyprian. It was crafted on the Cyprian feast day in Thailand while I was saying prayers over here. And I have made a couple of necklaces that go along with them. And they have a vial of Nanman oil in the back.
I'll be hitting it for that one. I've been doing a lot on Saint Cyprian's feast. All three question mark that I celebrate. Yeah, the Catholic one and then the two Orthodox ones. And I've been working on a batch of Cyprian and Justina amulets and prayer ropes. They've been really cool because the amulets themselves have dirt from like 3 different churches of hymns in the Balkans and the Mediterranean, and then there's so much animals, plants, dirts, like 9 bishops, 9 priests, 9 churches, 9 cemetery gates, all that good stuff, but also a lot of different things that are very traditional recipes I've received from the Balkans across my journeys there and studies there for techniques for him. So I'm looking forward to that. It's just he's a stubborn bastard and wants it to be very perfect. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I'll be all up in your business about that. Man, I wish you guys could see this. Yeah, send us pictures so we can put them on the show notes for our patrons. So then, because you're in the server and feel free to post it there. But like, oh, that one looks so good.
I love these things. It's so funny because like I told Ajarn, it's something that started off like, hey, like I kind of want to I want to come together and have an amulet for that I could offer to San Cyprian, with the work that we're doing and stuff like that. But like I only asked for one.
No.
And he's like, how many do you want? I was like, well, when you're presented with that question,
Yeah, I was gonna just have this be my little secret, but I just realized, yeah.
And I was like, but I could share this with a few people. So let me get 7. But we are working on another one because I started explaining to him, it's just like, hey, like there is a feast that is coming up. This idea kind of like came up, and I want to offer this to San Cyprian and stuff like that. He asked me how many I wanted and stuff like that, and he's like, but what is this, And I started explaining who San Cyprian was, the backstory and everything. And he was impressed and very interested. So I told him, I was like, I'm gonna give you some of the oil that I made that I have, that I use personally for my my ceremonies. And so I sent them a nice, decent size bottle of the oil that I've made. And we'll probably be making something much bigger, working on something much bigger for the next project, in relation to San Cyprian. And see where we go. And Kimbanda side as well, It's
Beautiful.
that is the one exploration that I just continue feeling driven, to explore further and further. There's a lot of the magic element that I see in necromantic practices that I feel will work well with the practices that we have, and or the magic that we're looking to explore as an extension of tools that we might employ in our sorcery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the amulets that I'm making have a patois influence for sure, especially since all of us are junior priests in the tradition, so it's been an interesting thing to explore. But I do find that specifically some of my spirits will be like, but you have a technique from this, so bring it in. And then I'm like, okay,
Exactly.
well, let me talk to my mentor in that tradition first. Let me clear some things by then. Like, this is appropriate. Let me get a reading if I need to, or check in if I do need a reading at all. And then, or if I just have the license to go ahead with it. But then my spirits will like be tickling up my back, being like, but I know you have this other thing. Let's blend it. Let's see how they make them kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like I can feel that, especially because Cyprian himself is such a spirit that blends traditions already as it is, and will continually aggressively do the sorcery thing of like, oh, does it work? Then I want it.
Yes. Yeah, it's been interesting, like I used to have the shrine for Cyprian separate from, the Thai stuff, and at first it was a little bit of an oddness, but now it has become such a presence. And it's been interesting because he's been shifting things around, or leading on inspiration in ways that like wouldn't necessarily sit around and think about, but it's interesting the inspiration that he brings forth, like in the thoughts and questions of like, but what about this, like, but this works and stuff like that, like, so what's holding you back, like, that it has worked before, But like as you say, like there's also the other side where we bounce back and forth between elders and stuff like that. Like as I've mentioned, there's this constant dialogue. The other day we were like going back and forth with Ajarno on the fact that we talk a lot. It's just like I remember we mentioned this. He was going and going and going and going. He's like, "I'm sorry, it's a lot of scrolling. We talk a lot."
Meanwhile, with us, it's like, no, 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 please keep talking. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and even when he's away, like I try not to bother him as much, but because I know that sometimes he takes drives that takes hours, when he goes from one town to another or visit, his god brother, and then he takes a little bit of a rest or has to go through competitions because he's involved in sports such as shooting, and it's interesting because he's a really good shot. He gets a lot of first prizes and stuff like that. He's really good.
Hell yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
want to see
it's all
those
the
amulets
magic.
that make it shoot straight, and that makes you aim really well.
Well, I've got a couple of
Well.
amulets that I need to put to the test. That I haven't tested myself or anything, but that are unlock, or are supposed to be unlock and come from his teacher, Luangpo Charwai. But yeah, I don't know.
Key.
Maybe we should put it to a test someday.
Yeah.
Key, I know what you're thinking. I feel it.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
I
The
know how you
words are
feel.
silent.
I know how you get around like bullet, anti-bullet, and pro-bullet talismans alike.
Yeah, definitely working on some anti-bullet charms right now that will eventually become available to people when they start making guns not fire. So a bit of R&D right now, but we're working on it.
It's awesome.
Key goes to the range with like a bunch of random shit just to
Mhm.
see if what will work and what won't.
Yeah.
Well, Ajarn also does something similar. He has shared pictures with me where like he's like, I have focused energy into this amulet, and it's the amulet of him as a teacher. And this one specifically, he was just like, it wasn't necessarily that I put protection. It was more for attraction and good luck.
Mhm.
So let's see if like if he will protect against a bullet that is coming his way. And he put it on the bullseye and everything, and he shot at it, and he hit it. He's like, okay, so I need a little bit more on the protective side. And I was like, all right, that's great that you're taking it to the test, but like he's like, maybe I need a little bit more on that side than than just attraction, and stuff like that. I was like, great. He's
Oh, that's
like, that's
awesome.
what he started telling me. He's like, who's good about it? He's like my teacher. He is really good about it. I was like, oh. I was like, what does he got? So of course I had to get a couple. But it's usually his coins, like coins of Luang Por Chaluai, that are blessed for that purpose.
And there's tattoos for that too, right? For like shooting and protection.
Yes, there is tattoos for that. There's levels of protection that come with certain tattoos, which also bring some taboos. I'm not too sure on the Apichai lineage. Like I would have to ask a little bit further on that. But from the other side that I've seen outside of him, on questions that I've done to other people. There is, some taboos involved in, like, if the person comes back to get a blessed, sometimes they're being tested where, like, they use a sharp knife to try to see if they can cut you, and if it leaves a mark, it shows that you have broken a taboo, and you have to rebless it and the whole ordeal. Which is interesting, but that's kind of like the way that they test certain protective tattoos. Prayers are done, the focus is there. Sometimes the agency is behind the person, and cuts or attempts to cut, and shows that there is no cut being done on the skin, and that shows that the tattoo is effective, which is something that I want to learn.
Yeah.
Totally,
Because
yeah.
putting that stuff on skin, like, imagine that you don't have to carry other tattoo other than your skin. Just keep in mind, just keep in mind, like, be careful, and that's it. Like, be mindful. And who knows, you're the man of steel by then.
And Pranyan's in the corner watching, going like, whoop, whoop. Yeah, just bumping it.
Well, I'll have the spirit pot also to, like, this, arms up,
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
hooray in
yeah.
the
This is so good.
The other thing I've been working on is I haven't made any posts about it, but there is an attraction corpse cloth that I'm working on, and it has one of my designs of a couple having sex and a couple of planetary influences in it, and sigils I have crafted for attraction, of course, sex and the goodness of that, and wealth, protection, and war and sex or love kind of like go hand in hand in a way, so there's also that side to it. It's a spicy one, but yes, I was able to acquire some of this materia, and I took it to the divination side because I knew it was going to be used for something, but I just didn't know what it was, and things kind of led up to a couple of designs, and so, like, now I've been hand drawing these things, which have been interesting because by the end of it, I get this weird buzzing, and I have to, like, take a break. So it gets a little strange, but yeah. So I'll be making probably 7 of those. I try to, like, focus on small batches to keep focus of the drawing and the work that I'm doing on them. Plus they have to go through a couple of offerings as well too. But yeah, that's so far the things I've been working on, along making oils, that are still hidden projects, and powders that are about to be released as well.
Beautiful. I'm so excited to pop them into the server. We'll share them, obviously, when they're ready to go, so people can maybe have first dibs.
Yes, of course.
Amazing. Well, Gary, it's been such a pleasure as always to chat about all these things. I mean, we have so much respect for you and your work, and it's just so excited to, like, hear about all the things that you're up to with your spirits and all the lineages that you practice. And really for us, just learning about the aspect of tattooing as a form of amuletic, like as a form of talismanic practice, as a way to have wearable magic that is consistent and that becomes a part of your body, that integrates into your spirit body and enhances it, and also that becomes a pact, like a written literal pact with your skin as the vellum, between you and certain spirits, and the person who gave it to you, and being the kind of guarantor of its empowerment, who can continue to refresh it, has been so illuminating. And I hope people will take a little bit away from it as not just, like, in terms of, like, what they might want from tattoos, but even if they don't want them, like, how they can enhance the way that they relate to spirits when they wear physical charms on their body, or when they anoint themselves with oil, even like a temporary thing. So we talked about, like, the oil tattoos too, or when they continually bathe themselves in the same ritual bath, or when they make themselves into a bit of a glove that the spirit wears and makes their own over time through trance and through possession. What it is to be changed by that, and what it is to become more like them, and what it is to start to share their taboos, or share their offerings, or start having food cravings for certain things, right? All these things come into play hugely whenever we talk about, like, tattoos. They're just one example of it, but you do a great job show demonstrating precisely how that can play out in very intimate ways and how that relates to amulets as kind of two sides of the same coin.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was so much fun. And and speaking of which, so again I mentioned it's the website is manticoresden.com, and you do have it's the same as the Instagram. And in terms of prangangang, you had a really good Akasha record for us, Carrie. What are you bumping right now?
It was No Tears.
No Tears by Scarface, which
Yeah.
so people on our Discord were like, "Oh, I love looking at the playlist on Spotify because we add them before the episode goes live, usually a week before, and they're like, oh, I can get a little like hint as to what's to come." And sometimes they're very obvious what the topic is because you can like, I mean, for the Kimbanda episode, it was literally like pontos plus like a Brazilian pop song that became really associated with Pombagira. And then sometimes it's just like random stuff, and it's just like, oh yeah, well, just you wait. Mine is really on the nose. It's Tattoo by Rammstein because I love Rammstein. Like I've seen them live. Like my problematic faves forever. And I know I had an embarrassing amount of facts about that band because I listened to them obsessively when I was a preteen. And what about you, Key? Do you have one for us since you're in the sick nasty zone right now?
Yeah, in the vein of blessing the inks and putting them in the skin, I have Super Ink Burst by Igloo Ghost for the Akashic record today.
Igloo Ghost. That takes me back. But
Oh
a hot
yeah.
second.
And it's doubly the Akashic record because it is on the album Neo Wax Bloom. So you can grow all your sipungs and include a little, blessed wax in there.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, amazing. So yeah, the Akashic Records of the Frightful House playlist is available on Spotify. Everyone, please do check out all of Gary's work. As you can hear, as you know, he is charming, hilarious, charismatic, and an absolutely badass sorcerer. Go buy his stuff. It's absolutely amazing. I have a bunch of his amulets. I carry one on my keychain. I have a bunch on my front door. I have one that I feed in my shrine room, like different charms that he's made through Conjure as well as through Time Necromancy. And I have one of his fusion patois, and they are just absolutely brilliant. I love wearing them during ritual. I love carrying them with me. I love like giving them offerings, and I mean my spirits just click with them well. They like them. And so, you're doing great work. And all the people I've talked to that carry your work and have had tattoos from you are like, you can just see the joy and appreciation that they have for the level of detail that you put into them and the way that you respect and honor their traditions too, especially when you're working with other sorcerers. The way that you bring in offerings, the way you bring in music and ritual drumming, incense, the way you customize the entire experience to be a ceremony. And the way that you'll actually talk to them about the logistics of bringing in an amulet into their court, into their spiritual life, and give them like details and instructions, like that is a level of care that we really try and model as well when we sell things in limited batches on with Command. So it's really always a pleasure to talk to you. I mean, you're one of our best friends, and it's something that we're always excited to like explore because you motivate us to do better and to keep being even more ambitious with our results because all of us are really hungry to test things. So thank you again for being here. And I mean you'll be a regular guest for sure. As always, it's our guests are friends, right? And it has to be that way. So it's always exciting when you're on and when you want to talk shop about some cool fucking things you're up to.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And it was always a pleasure to come in over and hanging out and talking. And of course, we'd love to come back and talk more magic.
And we will indeed.
That we will.
All right, Key. Our lessons to depart for this episode, a little cheeky, is actually the exorcism of the ink from the Gormarium Verum. Just as a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to tattooing. And since you're in your deep, sick, nasty man voice, I mean, you usually read them, but give it to us all velvety smooth.
I exercise you, O creature of ink, by Anston, Sereton, Simulator, Adonai, and by the name of the one who created all things with a single word, that you will assist me in this work, and that my work may be accomplished according to my will, that it may be completed with the permission of God, who reigns without end for all the ages of the ages. Amen.
Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. Oh fuck! I forgot the B. What's our B?